Greetings. In the name of Oduno Moray, all that is good and great, all that is blessed and beautiful, all that is creative and conscious, and all that is positive and possible. May all your blessings be infinite like the night stars, and all good things be never ending. Hotep, I am Medisola Biobank Cody, your host to Mind Vibes, Thoughts from a Curious Mind. A bi-monthly podcast series exploring and examining social phenomena then and now. Now, in this episode, I will be dealing with what I title Cultural Deslusion. Right? Because I think this is an interesting topic, and it's one, unfortunately, I don't have a solution to, but I think it is something that we really need to explore. But before we go there, hit that like button, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Again, a cultural delusion. Quote unquote, the confusion about our condition doesn't change the condition. Naeem Akbar. A few weeks ago, my queen and I went to this festival. While we were standing in line, we noticed what appeared to be a middle-aged couple, white couple, standing in line holding two small black children. Now, these were not black children, or quote-unquote biracial children from either parents, perhaps adult white offsprings, because the young black boy called the white man father. Now, this has always been an interesting topic for me, just because of the ramification that surrounds it, particularly within a white society dealing with a whiteness paradigm, which in and of itself is and has always been predicated on its white supremacy paradigm. In other words, to be raising two black children is an anthem to the very notion of what whiteness is. So then the question becomes how whites raise children as their own, or can they? There was a television series entitled Judge Amy, a show dealing with experiences of a white liberal woman, judge, who has his fantasy about screwing her black male law clerk. There was an episode where the same exact situation occurred, where a white granddaughter was an addict and she couldn't take care of her daughter. Yet Judge Amy, in her quote-unquote wisdom, gave custody of the child to the girl's mother, who did not want anything to do with the child. So-called, Judge Amy. A similar case happened with a black grandmother who very much wanted the child, which is, by the way, we of the African community do. It's something we do. The child may have some difficulties. The father may be incarcerated, or the mother may be alcoholic, or somehow. A sister in the Gumbo Fusions Writers Workshop a couple of weeks ago, she wrote a script. It was a very cute script, very, very tight, very nice, about this very same topic, about the mother having to take that child. Because that's just what we do as African people. Yet, this quote-unquote white liberal judge, who continues to fantasize about her black buck, gave the young black girl to the white couple without regards to the black community, because she cared nothing about the black community. A similar storyline was in Halle Berry's epic film Losing Isaiah. Can whites raise black children, particularly when their people were the ones who created the situation in the first place? Yeah, that's a question. If one is dealing with the essentials such as discipline, clothing, food in their bellies, then yes, all living beings can be raised. However, can they be nurtured? Guidance to the ways of their community and or culture. Many celebrities such as Sandra Bullock, Angela Jolie, etc. took children from their environment to give them quote unquote good home. Black scholars, psychologists, black sociologists have written numerous treatises on this very idea and found profound disorientation, psychosis, and self-hatred in these black children when they become adults. This is what happens when whites profess to know what is best for quote-unquote us. All people are cultural. They may not be always in their own culture, but they are in someone else's. Many Africans, Asians, and indigenous people have been moved, like Molefe Asante says, off their cultural center, removed from who and what they are, totally devoid of their own historical cultural reality. And since all people are to a degree cultural, it stands to reason that your cultural experiences, your epistemology, your historiography, and your cosmology would be fully intact. But again, what happens when you have been taken away from all you know of yourself and given a 244 plus history of someone else's, especially of your oppressor's idea and culture? Once again, Molefe correctly states that you become a beggar people on the fringe of history. This is what whiteness has done, particularly here in America. The whole premise of white supremacy is, according to the dictionary, now it's the dictionary, white supremacy is the belief that white people underscore are superior to those of other races underscore and thus should dominate them. The belief favored the maintenance and defense of any power underscored and privileged underscore held by white people. White supremacy has roots in the now discredited doctrine of underscored scientific racism and was a key justification for underscore or underlined European colonialism. So, if this meaning is factual, then the very nature of whiteness is to maintain and project power at all costs, which includes not allowing blacks and other people of color to advance in any form or shape. But more, they are not, as Maulana Karenga correctly points to be, self-determined, to have an unabated conversation with their culture. This is a no-no, for it denies the power whites have over those whom they see as less than human beings. Even the thought or sight of wearing afros or natural hair or any clothing that recognizes their cultural heritage sends whites in a tizzy. It is the one thing that dilutes their ultimate control. Now, can you believe this? Black women had to, actually go to Congress, to the state Congress and to the American Congress to create what they call the Crown Act. Now, I don't know if it was signed into law. I'll have to look into that. But they had to deal with the fact that whites were just unsettled and discombobulated because here they are wearing their natural hair, their braids, their locks, their afros. Because somehow or another, so they had to revisit the Tigan law that was back in Louisiana in the late 1800s to do away with it. Just so they could be natural, to be who they are as African people. So again, the question becomes, can a white parent truly raise black children as their quote-unquote own? In the film AI, the human parents were trying to conceive but failed to get a child. So they quote unquote adopted this AI boy who's supposed to fulfill the needs of his human parents. But there was one problem. He was a machine. And as much as the human mother tried to love him, she could not, for it could not feel. So when they were able to conceive a real flesh and blood child, they got rid of the AI boy, who unfortunately was discombobulated because he was programmed to love. But the love could never be truly returned. Now, I am certainly not comparing this AI film to a white parent and their black child. I am simply establishing one reason why a black child being raised by a white parent may not be advantageous to the black child, given that the parent will operate from a white paradigm position. You know, now sometimes you see, my queen and I have a friend who is from the island, and she, has been living out somewhere in Long Island. She's living in this white enclave, and all her children now have white partners, right? Now she knows how to cook her island food and stuff, and she knows, but every West Indian Day parade, she never goes to. She never took her children to. She never really dealt with black history. So imagine if you are a white parent and you're raising a white child. What happens? Because in my opinion, when you have 99% of whites in a community, they don't have to be overt to deal with their racism. Covert, yes, but not overt with the blacks or brown people who live in that neighborhood. So here you may have a white parent raising a black child. Now the black child grows up, he's preteen or whatever, he's with his white friends. They go out and they do something, just how, boys do. And all of a sudden the police comes, who gets it? The black child, the black boy. And even though that police may be from that neighborhood, it knows who the parent is of the child. That's even more, because they may resent the fact that this white parent was raising this Negro. Make no mistakes. We have seen too often that your child raised by white parents, although the child's material needs are met, and they may very well be given nurturing tendency. However, the cultural aspects will be missing. And that above all is what's most important, since we are cultural beings. Again, many of our brilliant black psychologists and sociologist scholars have done many studies and research in this area. This setup does not often fare well for the black child. They tend to strike out at society, either becoming despondent or they begin to show antisocial behavior, again withdrawing from society. They very well become so dysfunctional, even to the point of self-hatred. There are other emotional and psychological issues that may pop up now and then. The white couples may believe they are doing the black child a favor by quote-unquote giving the child what they need, according to them, which often means material comforts. But again, if the child is devoid of their culture and begins to identify with the dominant culture, but finds out he or she is not, that will wreak havoc on their mental health. Are there a few of those situations that have turned out decent? Yeah. But when one looks deeper down, there will always be, even for them, something missing. Again, I'm going to pose the question. Can whites raise black children? Materialistically, yes. But only, as me and Brother Dan Jr. had discussed, only with black support can they come near to what the child needs psychologically, emotionally, and culturally. But therein lies the crust. For why would you take the time to learn about the very culture that you have been and continuously champion for its destruction? You know, you may say, "Oh, this is my black child," but I don't like what those Negroes are doing out there. We need to do something about that. So you're constantly denying the black community. You did this. It's just like what Roland Martin has written. White fear. Every time we start progressing, you get, even though you're raising a black child, but the black community can never gain some form of respect or some form of progression. To learn about, quote unquote, our culture, you will have to deal with some very real and cold facts about your history and possibly you. In Dr. Robin DiAngelo's phenomenal book, White Fragility, she deals with the real inability for whites to really become understanding of not only their history in America, but of themselves. Because the reality is, in order for white supremacy to work, you as an individual or a group must become part of the white collective consciousness with the white paradigm consciousness. And that paradigm, as we know it, tends to suppress human tendency. I wish I could offer some reassuring words here, but it is hard-pressed for me to do so, given that, quote-unquote, our culture is constantly and relentlessly being under siege daily. Again, I have no problem with children being adopted, in many cases due to the mitigating circumstances. It is best for the child to be in a safe, warm, and heartful environment. All children are deserving of that. However, to take a child out of an already damaged culture and giving that child to the very people who continue to be the ones who have nearly destroyed that child's culture is not, I dare say, a completely healthy environment. For sooner or later, both the child and the child's white parent who adopted him or her will come to some form of reckoning, and no one knows how that reckoning will manifest itself. There are no easy answers to this dilemma, nor am I the one to give a solution. I'm just making an observation to an ongoing issue that I see with the so-called do-gooders, like those celebrities in Tinseltown, who feel the need to express their bona fides of their benign liberal status, mainly because as white folks, they can do it. This does not solve our ongoing whiteness issue we are having here in America, and it is certainly not benefiting the black community itself. It merely perpetuates the issue of identity and cultural crisis within the black community itself. Again, this is just my opinion, my observation. I offer no real solution to this ongoing issue, but it is one that we will have to deal with, or we will see very many black children being raised by whites, being disoriented and decentered of who they are. And when that happens, we may very well see antisocial behavior and activity rather than coming together with mutual respect for our different cultures, working towards a humane society. Because that's one of the things, if we start seeing these kind of antisocial behaviors, these kind of discombobulation from these black children who are now adults, we may reap the fruits of what we have sown, particularly whites, because they are going to be the ones. The black communities will feel it, but the white community will have to be the ones that will have to try to pick up the pieces. And what will they deal with? They would deal with crime. Just like Biden, flip-flopped on the Washington, D.C. people, because of, crime. Because, see, black folks are supposed to be inherently criminal. So if that black child who's raised by that white parent now becomes a criminal, does that mean that inherently they couldn't do anything because the black child is inherently a criminal? That's a perplexing question, but it is one that we will have to deal with, because if we are to move towards a feasible utopia, we're going to have to deal with the reality of who and what America is, because if we don't, we will never reach any kind of utopia or any sense of progress, because we will always be stuck in the mire of white supremacy and a delusion, a cultural delusion. This is Adisola Baikole again, saying, may we all strive to bend the arc of justice towards humanity and believe that love and peace can be achieved. Asante Sana.